A warm welcome to Disky Talk with Liolo. If you're tuning in for the very first time, I do ask that you please subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you've been a part of this journey, I hope you thoroughly enjoy this episode. So, on today's episode, I discuss all things Mamelodi Sundowns as I have a look at Sipho Mbule and Bongani Zungu, who could potentially rejoin Mamelodi Sundowns. When you do have a look at Sipho Mbule then, this is a player then who has been plying his trade at SuperSport United in recent years. A player then who did very well in the beginning stages of his SuperSport United career. It's just that in the past season, he really struggled for form and he didn't play much. So he went through injuries and he was struggling for form as well. However, when you do have a look at the qualities of Sipho Mbule, this is a very creative player and a number 10 then who is very good then with regards to manipulating the ball within those tight pockets of space. So this is then an attacking midfielder who does offer you that qualitative and positional superiority with regards to then how he looks then to occupy pockets of space in between the lines, and with regards then how he looks to occupy the left side of the half space, zone 14, the right side of the half space, and a player then who does tend to break into the final third. So a player then who does also offer you final third penetration and creativity as well. He also then does have an eye for goal as over the past couple of seasons, he has proven that he can score a couple of goals coming from midfield, and a player then who has a lot of strength with regards to holding up the ball. So when you then have a look at it then, with regards to Mamelodi Sundowns. So when you have a look at Mamelodi Sundowns and how they would look to play. So as of late, the past season, Mamelodi Sundowns did play with somewhat of a 4-2-3-1 formation. So when you do have a look at it then, Sipho Mbule then would be competing with one of these three players, because then when you do have a look at it then, they would have off the left-hand side, you do have Ralani, you would have a Tembazwane, and then you do have a Mayem. However, you also then have Serino, you also then have Kapinga as well, and there's Kutumela as well, who can play in one of those positions as well. At times, it would be somewhat of a 4-2-2-2, you know, so that is just basically how they play. So it is a double pivot, a two-man midfield, and then you've got sort of this front four in a sense with three creative players, and then you'd normally have Peter Shalile with him. At times he does look to start wide. However, from a basic standpoint, that's how it would look. So when you do have a look at Sipho Mbule, then he is competing with so many players with regards then to looking to break into that starting lineup. And when you also look at the fact that he is also himself a creative player, and when you have a look at all the other creative players that he's up against, these are players then who have been at Mamelodi Sundowns for a lot of seasons. So it's not going to be easy then for Sipho Mbule, as we do know that he's a very talented player. However, it remains to be seen with regards to how then does he look to adapt to Mamelodi Sundowns, and will he then be able then to get into great fitness and also then have that sharpness to be able then to play within this Mamelodi Sundowns team, because then they do have quite the intricate and quite the highly intensive game model. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Sipho Mbule does look to adapt. However, at home, do let me know, what do you make of the Sipho Mbule signing? Also considering then that this is a player then who can play a bit deep in midfield, so he can play as an 8 as well. But I don't foresee him being used as an 8. I do foresee him then being used in one of the creative roles as an attacking midfielder. So moving on then right along, let's have a look at the next player. So there is Bongani Zungu. So with Bongani Zungu then, he is a free agent, and because he is a free agent then, there are a lot of teams then which are looking at acquiring his services, especially considering then that there would be no fee that they'd have to pay a club. So with him then, it is then direct negotiation with Bongani Zungu and his camp. So it's going to be very interesting to see then if he does eventually sign for Sundowns. But if he were to rejoin Sundowns, where would he fit in? So with Bongani Zungu then, he is then a deep laying midfielder. So he can play as an 8 or he can play as a defensive midfielder. But because of how Mamelodi Sundowns play, they do play then with a double pivot. So I think then he'd slot in right alongside Andile Jali. But when you do have a look at the other players within this position, Mamelodi Sundowns do have Tebogo Mokoena, they do have Spelele Mkhulisi, they do have Mabowe as well. So there is quite a lot of competition, but because of the experience that Bongani Zungu does offer and the expertise as well, I think you'd slot in right alongside Andile Jali. We do know that there is Rivaldo Kotsia as well. So when you do have a look at it then, that Mamelodi Sundowns midfield is quite star-studded. So it's going to be very interesting to see then with regards to how they both fare out. But with Bongani Zungu, I do think that would be a great signing. And I do think that Bongani Zungu would walk into the starting lineup. However, at home, do let me know, what do you make of Bongani Zungu potentially joining Mamelodi Sundowns? And what do you make of the signing of Sipho Mbule? So we also do know then that they have released George Malega, and they are then also looking to also release Sbusiso Vilekazi. So, ladies and gentlemen, do let me know, what do you make of Mamelodi Sundowns transfer window thus far? Them then bringing in Sipho Mbule, potentially signing Bongani Zungu, also then releasing George Malulega, and with reports that they could release Sbusiso Vilekazi as well. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in to yet another special episode of Diski Talk with Luyolo. Signing out.